Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, so yeah, like Coach Mucha said, we got to be peers for a year at Jesuit, and yeah, he asked me if I'd be interested in talking to you guys, and I thought for sure. So I guess just to start off, like a little bit of background about myself. From Columbus, I started wrestling in like seventh grade. Wrestled in high school there. Then I went to college at Wheeling Jesuit. That's where I met Coach Mucha. I guess after I graduated, took a year off, just sort of like kind of wasting time, not doing anything important, and then decided to get back into the wrestling like a year after. So I guess like I'll start like at the beginning. Being in high school, I wasn't like a world beater or anything. I wrestled in the state tournament as a senior. I lost the match to go as a junior. I was good, a good wrestler, but I didn't like understand wrestling really. I didn't even looking back on it, I don't even know how I scored points really. I just sort of like I was athletic and I would do double unders, but I didn't have any good setups or shots, or I didn't ride. I could just, I don't know, flop around. Like I really, I'm not like a world beater or anything like that. So then got a little bit of recruiting love coming out of high school. Got into college. That's started training with Coach Doyle. Was my head coach, and then things I started to come together a little more. I started shooting a lot of double legs and high crotches. I started learning about being tough on top. I was having some weight issues my junior year. So freshman and sophomore year, I wrestled 97. Junior year, I was having trouble making weight. I didn't end up making weight till second semester, and so I wasn't a starter all my junior year. Like wrestled a bunch of opens and was getting good, but didn't get my shot at the national tournament. Then as a senior, I moved up to heavyweight. I was weighing about like 238, 240. Finished with a record of like, I don't know, like 27 and like 8, something like that. Nothing incredible. I beat some All-Americans, but then again, story of my career had been I fumbled in the match to go to the national tournament against a guy, returning All-American I'd already beat. And so that was like, in that moment, I was pretty much like, man, I've given everything I had to this sport, and like that's the end of it. Whatever, I'm just gonna make the best of it. I'm through with it, And then before I knew it, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get into MMA. I start training MMA for like a month, and every day, like after I would train, after work, I would come home. I'd be on Flow or YouTube, like just watching like wrestling videos. Like I was still watching wrestling. I was still coaching at my high school. I was still talking to guys about wrestling, and I'm like, well, maybe I still want to do this. My mom was an immigrant from Costa Rica, so I had dual citizenship from when I was probably like 10 years old up until now. And so I had met a guy on Facebook who used to wrestle for Costa Rica. He wrestled at Iowa State, and got into contact with him. He put me in contact with the president of the committee, and I'm pretty much like, I'll do whatever. I just want a shot. Like I want to wrestle. I want to represent the country. Win a medal. Like all I really wanted was more matches. Like I wanted to wrestle. That's what I love to do. That's what I wanted to do. And he's like, giving me the run around a little bit, not really taking me seriously, until one time he's like, okay, well, you can come down and have a wrestle off. There's a guy here who wrestles 97. He was probably like 35 at the time. And if you beat him, you'll be the spot, the national team member at 97 kilos. I'm like, all right, cool. So I get all my money together. I buy a ticket. I go down there. I have family down there, so it was pretty easy. I stayed for about a month, trained. The date comes for the wrestle off, and the guy is out of the country. And I'm like, damn, here we go again. Like another time that I just wasn't able to get what I wanted. Why does this keep happening? Like, is it not meant to be? I don't understand. And so then the coach and president of the committee is like, okay, well, we want to have another wrestle off. And I'm like, no, man, I spent everything I had to come down here. Like, I don't have money to be doing this. And he's like, okay, well, we want you to be the guy. You're younger. This other guy has no ill will towards you. He just didn't want to retire before there was another wrestler in that position. Okay. And they're like, what we want you to do is we want you to go to this tournament in Panama. At this point, I wasn't like nobody knew who I was, even in Costa Rica. Like they weren't like, oh, we got this guy coming in to wrestle, let's give him funding. So this is all like from money I had made bartending, serving, whatever. I think one of my bus tickets was a gift from like my girlfriend. She bought me a bus ticket. And he's like, go to this tournament in Panama. It won't be super deep or anything, but it's a tournament we always compete in, and there'll be the Panamanian 97 kilogram rep there. I'm like, all right. So I go, fly to Costa Rica, boom, jump on a bus to Panama, get there. I'm staying in a seedy, like, little hotel, and I figured I'd wrestle Greco and freestyle. I wrestled Greco, ended up wrestling some guys from the Northern Michigan Olympic Center in the United States, and just again, I won one match and then just got stomped, got teched. Next match, got like teched again. I lasted longer, but I still got teched, and I'm like, man, like, whatever, freestyle's my thing. We're gonna make this happen tomorrow. So I wrestled some guy who wasn't super high level. I beat him. I beat the second guy. The third match, like I said, wrestled somebody who had a little more experience. He was a little younger than me. And then finally, my finals match, I wrestled the guy, the national rep from Panama. I ended up beating him. The final score was like 6-0, but he injury defaulted after I put him down on his back, like hip area really hard. He was kind of old. It didn't matter. But I was happy because I'm like, finally, like I got a win. Like people are going to start knowing me. After that, they're like, oh, damn, you're like the first person from our country to ever win this tournament. Now we want to send you to the Pan American Championships in 2019, which was Buenos Aires, Argentina. And I'm awesome, so I'm gonna come home and I start training. Granted, I didn't have like an RTC to train with. I didn't have a bunch of training partners, but I knew Coach Irwin had contacted me if I was interested in coaching, and I told him my plans, and he was like, yeah, come down. So I'm like, okay. I moved to Wheeling, and I started coaching, just being in the room as much as I could, like working out with guys. Coach Mucha, Coach Irwin, were putting me through workouts. Something I'm always grateful for is that like when nobody really believed in me or thought that like what I was doing was notable, those two were always like, yeah, man, like we're gonna get it done, So we train, we go to the national tournament, have a good showing as a team from Jesuit. I come back, a few more weeks go by, boom, I go to Argentina, and this is when the first time I encountered like this level of international, like competition. It's more intense than college wrestling in the way that it's like if you're not physically or mentally prepared, you won't just lose. Like you can get fucking seriously hurt. Like, and I didn't know that. I think it was good and bad in the way that I just went in being like, my first time here, I'm gonna just full send, and we're gonna see, where I end up, and we'll build from there. Mind you, my country, Costa Rica, doesn't have a lot of money, let alone for wrestling. So they weren't able to send me with a coach. They sent me with a guy who had wrestled in for Costa Rica previously. So he's knew some of the coaches and had some experience there, but not a good wrestler. He tries hard, but anybody who probably weighs more than 180 pounds would probably like take him down and turn him up without a problem here. So like, so we go, I wrestle, my first match, I win. Introduced from Argentina. Second match, I wrestled a freaking, if anybody is familiar with international wrestling, a Cuban by the name of Salas, last name Salas Perez. And he walloped me, like, granted, we went out of bounds at one point and they gave him 4 points for something I didn't think was like like a 4-point maneuver. But in any case, I'm like, it was the strongest person I'd ever put my hands on, and not like strong, like squeezy strong, but strong in the way of from 0 to 100, just absolutely like was moving me around, like lifted me up and threw me around like I hadn't been done since I was probably in middle school wrestling against the coach or something like that. So I'm like, whatever, shake it off, The next match in my repechage, I wrestled a guy from Ecuador, and I ended up hitting him with one of my like go-to moves, a foot sweep. I foot swept into his back, got another exposure, and before I know it, I'm wrestling for bronze medal in the Pan American Championships. And like, mind you, months before this, like nobody would have known me from anybody, you know. And you know, I'm just thinking, and this is where I made one of my first mistakes. Is I'm like, wow, like this could really change my life. This could change my situation. This could change where I live. This could change my career moving forward. And I went out lackadaisical. A guy from Venezuela, first name Roberti or last name Roberti. Good guy. Not like probably not a world medalist or anything, but has been a Pan American medalist year after year. You know, different. Got a really weird style. He doesn't drop to his knees. He's kind of high in his stance, but he snags a 2-on-1, gets to a single leg, lifts me up, and like slams me with such just force. I kind of like am sort of wrapped. Leg laces me up, and before I know it, like it's 8-0. I don't even know like really where I'm at. I'm looking around. I'm like, oh, having that like noise in my ears. Damn. All right, whatever. So I end up losing the match. So I took fifth. But this was in 2019, so it was 2020 was 2019 was a Pan American Games year. And so I take fifth, and the way it was working with qualification, I slid in and got the sixth spot of 8 into the Pan American Games. And so, you know, it was good. That was one thing that was really big for my country. So this is pretty much like now my first sort of like moral victory and physical victory. You know, that's when things sort of changed. It got a little more intense. Up to now, it had been, yeah, I'm training with the same type of people that I was in college, which is fine, you know. Anybody that I train as a coach, especially if you're near my weight, and we would work out, I would hope that, like, I would never tell someone that they're beneath me, especially if you're going to listen to what I have to say, and then I'm going to ask you to take some of your time to work out with me, you know. I would never like demote that in any way. And so my country's like, cool, here's some money. They start paying for my apartment, and I'm like, whoa, okay, so like things are getting a little bit real, like fast. And so then another coach who I have, his name is Sergey. He was Olympic coach for Belarus in London 2012. He's coached like a few Olympic medalists. He was a USSR champ back in the day. I think he was a USSR like civil medalist in judo, so just martial artist through and through. He's like, I'm going to Belarus and Russia to do wrestling training. You want to come? And I'm like, oh, I don't got the money. Like, let me see if Costa Rica, you know, they cut the check. Before I know it, I'm in Belarus, like, and we're training twice a day. And that's when I realized, like, things sort of change. Like, the training kind of changed in the international sense. And so I just, before I knew it, I'm like, all this has happened. I'm looking at all these people, and I'm like, within a week, I've been on the mat now with world medalists and world champions, and it's crazy. And then after that trip, it's sort of like solidified in my head that there's no reason that it couldn't be me. You know, up until that point, I thought, oh, I'm just Maxwell. I'm doing it because I love it. Like, let's see what happens. But after those moments, it was pretty much like I've proven like I can, to myself, I can win. I've proven to my country I can win. There's no reason why it can't be me. And I guess that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you guys about, is that regardless of your background, some of you guys, most of you guys probably had a way better high school career than I did anyway, you know, like wasn't anything to write home about. But like I knew that I was getting better. I knew that I was athletic enough, and I knew that I was like not afraid of the work. And there was times, yeah, it sucked. Like I didn't fully commit myself in the NCAA. Like, you know, I was still staying up late and procrastinating my work, not putting in the extra time. And then, you know, I sort of realized after that, you know, once you do those things, it sucks sometimes in the moment. I'm not gonna lie, like I love to wrestle, but like, you know, sometimes you want to go out with your friends and, you know, to whoever's house or have drinks or whatever, you know. Sometimes it's not ideal, but like you put in the work, like you're gonna get there, you know. It doesn't matter about accolades or what you did before. It's just the only difference between like guys like us and guys like Kyle Snyder or Jaden Cox or Sadalayev is just that the only real difference is they may have more resources, but they still have to go like grab somebody's head or collar and set up a shot and go get it. You know, like have to get their hands locked. They're not doing anything special or different, you know? So that's pretty much my thing. It's like, well, it's great to have awesome coaches, and that is something I've been blessed with. I've had great technicians as coaches. A coach is there to supplement what you have. You built that foundation yourselves. You've all built that foundation up to this point, and they're there to supplement and to add on to what you already have. So anything that you want to do, specifically in this wrestling scenario or in other scenarios, you know what I mean? Work with what you have, you know. Like I was just in a college room with college guys. There was times I worked out in high school rooms with my coach Sergey. There's times where I was just doing stance and motion by myself. There was times I was doing battle ropes. I was trying to simulate hand fight with battle ropes. Get it however you get it. Don't be ashamed however you're gonna get it, because it doesn't matter. Because once you get there, and you start to accomplish like the sort of things you're going after, it's just like probably more addictive than any other drug you could ever do. To accomplish something you set out to do is I don't know. I don't want to say it's like the meaning of life, but as far as I've known, I'm only 24, obviously, but it's been the most fulfilling thing I've been able to come across. And it's everybody has it within themselves, you know. Like I'm sure you all feel yourselves getting better in the room every day. You probably feel that maybe this wasn't the move or wasn't the position, but you know for a fact, if I get on top and get a cross wrist, like I'm the one of the best in the nation. Like nurture that shit, hold that shit close. Don't let anybody take that away from you, because regardless of what like happens, if that's what you firmly believe, and just like feed that goal, it's going to become like whatever you want it to become to whatever scale. That's pretty much it, you know. Like nothing sets us apart from the people that you see on Flow Wrestling outside of, and maybe they figured it out what they need a little before we did, but it's not a race, you know. It's a journey, it's a marathon, as cliche as that sounds. So that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Max. You know, we were a little rushed because we had this 40-minute time, so I hope I didn't cut too much off of you.
No, you're good.
Awesome stuff. So now I'm just going to kind of open it up. I got a couple questions for Coach Lacey, but yeah, I'll let you guys go first. So go ahead. Anybody has a question? You know, any guys he's wrestled, things like that. Unmute yourself, ask your question, and go ahead and mute yourself again, so we're not getting feedback off your computer and stuff.
I got one.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so do you ever have like pre-match nerves, and if you do, like how do you handle that?
Yeah, man, that's been a big thing for me since college, and specifically for like the first match of a tournament, my nerves are always really bad. But one thing I've done to combat it is like the only thing that I'm sort of not looking forward to in a match is getting tired. So I pretty much blow through that. Everybody's had that scenario where you're in on the leg, you scramble, you don't get a takedown, you go out of bounds, you look at the clock, it says 2 minutes, 30 seconds left, and you're like, oh my God, like I'm already tired. So I blow that out of the water before. So about like maybe a match, 2 matches before I'm supposed to wrestle, I put like a minute, 30 seconds on the clock, and I go hard. Like I'll get about 10 yards, and I have a hard warm up that by the end my heart rate is high. Like we're talking, like to the point to where you'd be like, I stretch my lungs out, because your lungs are just like a balloon. Like you stretch them out, then they'll be able to more appropriately give you oxygen, and that sort of helps my mind to know that like the one thing I was sort of worried about, getting tired, I'm already at my second wind. I could go for 10 minutes now. So now it's just the point of go out there and mix it up, create positions that you know that you can be successful in. And I just find peace, mental peace in that.
Cool. Anybody else got anything?
Hey, Max, this is Coach Lake. Sorry, I jumped on a little late. Can you hear me all right?
Good. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I'm at my nephew's birthday party, but I didn't want to miss it. But I had a question for you, and you made some really good points in the part that I caught. And one thing that stood out was how you feel yourself getting better, right? And I think we have guys in our room that are feeling that happen. Do you remember a time for you that it was like you figured it out? Like, you know what, I'm actually pretty good. Like, I feel these little things happening. Was there a time in your career that you kind of realize it was, whether it's affirmation or just a big victory or a moment in practice that you kind of point to that says, for me, this was the moment?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there was a time when I was in Russia, I wrestled a guy, and everyone was telling me, oh, he's a master of sport, which is like some ranking they get in Russia. And like, to be honest, I was a little nervous. I'm like, I'm here in Russia, no one's speaking my language. I don't want to lose in front of my coach. No one wants to lose. And I'm like, I'm just going to go out and do my thing. And he comes out, takes a shot, and I immediately, like, my body went right into the thing that I think I'm best at, is just like a down block counter score. And then I got to like my meetup position, got to a leg, scored a takedown and a turn. And I was like, the same things I did in my college room that I learned from my coaches, that was the first time they had really translated to the next level. And that pretty much affirmed that I was like, there's no secret techniques that anybody's doing. You hit what you hit hard and fast, you'll be successful most of the time. Like, there was I listened to a podcast, I believe it was like a Marine, and he said a lot of times in war, he's got to make decisions where if he makes the wrong decision, people die. He's never going to find the perfect 100% foolproof plan. 9 times out of 10, the best he can do is 80% sure of that plan with 110% intensity and execution. And so I just sort of think about that. Like, maybe I don't need to dive to that ankle and roll through, but I'm going to, and I'm going to do as hard and as fast as I can, to give myself the best chance at success,
No, it's perfect. Thank you.
No problem.
So I got one for you, Max. So you're kind of unique to a lot of wrestlers in the fact that you're still competing while you're coaching, right? Yeah. So you've kind of had to adapt and grow to be able to coach and compete. So kind of part one, what has kind of been a struggle in that transition from athlete to coach and then kind of back to athlete? And then second part two is kind of what's just, kind of your biggest piece of advice looking at your journey that you could kind of give to guys now that you're a coach and you see it both ways.
Okay. I think the toughest part for me was being a coach, especially with wrestling with guys that are younger. I don't want to go out of my way to crush anybody's confidence or physically hurt somebody. Whether people want to believe it or not, between the years of 18 and 24, there's a lot of maturing that happens. And if like I'm not mindful, I could roll somebody up on an ankle and potentially hurt them, which is the last thing I want as a coach. That'd be absolutely like heart-wrenching. I'd take somebody's chance at a national title away. So that's been really hard, and it almost made me lazy at times. Like, I was waiting for people to shoot because deep down I knew, I'll just defend the shot, I'll get my score, teach them a little lesson, whatever. And so I sort of had to break that habit and flip the switch when it's like, I believe this guy is capable of giving me a good look. We're here to train, and it's my training session. We're going to go hard. And if you're not prepared for that, cool, let me know. I'll find a different partner. But when we're doing that, that's what we're doing. The second thing, the biggest piece of advice I think would be, I've learned recently, is just always be looking to score, because you'll find times to score when you wouldn't normally like think times to score. Wrestling gets taught to us in like these phases. It's like you're on your feet, you take your shot, maybe you get extended, maybe you get in deep. What's the next step? But it's not always like a linear step. You know what I mean? Sometimes maybe the guy splits the middle, your hips fall off to the side, and the next step in your mind is like, oh, well, now I free my arm and spin around back. But there's no reason you can't just like take your forearm and cut the dude across his face, put him to his back immediately. Like a lot of times I don't want to call it like freestyling, but that's why when you watch international wrestlers, you see so many of these crazy things, because it's like, that wasn't even necessarily a move as much as it was just like a position and an action with a reaction. So always be looking to score or defend, after an attack, another attack, counter shots, reshots. As soon as you get free, the guy gets your leg up, you fight hands. As soon as you get to the foot to the mat, what's he doing? Standing right in front of you, fire away. You know what I mean? Worst case scenario, you're wrestling anyway. That's one thing I tell my guys a lot, is just to not, don't wait for him to throw his best stuff at you. Because when you defend his best stuff, sometimes the defense wins. Sometimes the bad guys win. But you got to fire one across the bow and let him know, oh, okay. Yeah, maybe I can't just do that to him right now. I gotta bide my time. And when he thinks about biding his time, game over.
Awesome. Anybody else got anything good for Coach Lacey?
I got a question.
Yeah.
When you're like training or like practicing for competition, what is your usual mindset going into that training?
My thing is, I'm always enjoying it. Like I enjoy feeling myself get better and trying these positions. But one thing I try to do is I take it like week by week. Granted, my training's in cycles, but my dad always told me when I was young, they make things that are bulletproof, but nothing is really knife-proof. Because if you focus all of your energy on a few like small amount of things, you're gonna see more like larger incremental growth, and that's kind of what keeps you going. So when I was developing a low single in college, I put myself in the room and I'm like, this week my primary attack is going to be a low single. Doesn't matter if I'm getting scored on. I'm not here to beat this guy. He's here to help me. We're here to help each other. Doesn't matter if I put myself in sort of bad position. Worst case scenario, I'm learning to wrestle through these positions. I'm learning to wrestle where my head's halfway peeked out. I'm learning to get a clean finish, immediately to a lace, so that by the end of that week, now you're more comfortable with that shot, with that position. So then maybe you try it out in an open. Boom. Oh, had a little bit of trouble here and there. Come back to the lab next week. Boom, boom. Then comes time for a duel. You fire that. The dude gives you a look, and you're like, I've been here 160 times the past 2 weeks. This is not normal. I don't have to take this split second to think about, oh, where do I go? What do I do from here? It's you've built that confidence and you built that comfort there already. So I think narrowing your focus to one or two, maybe three things at a time, you're gonna start to see and notice growth and improvement. And everybody knows, like we all know as wrestlers, when you see that improvement, it's like a drug. You're like, oh, that was awesome. You're like, now I want more, and that just sort of propels and compounds.
Awesome.
What would you say is the best way for cardio, or best way to get in shape, I guess?
That's a tough one. I mean, there's a lot of like science, but one thing I try to do with being that I've trained a bunch of different places, I try to make sure when I am going to do my mat wrestling that I'm already in good enough shape to get something out of it. So if you're just jumping straight from couch mode onto the mat, not a bad thing, but you're not going to get a lot out of your drill, because after 10 reps, your body's not used to that yet. So I get myself in like baseline normal type shape, and then I try to structure all of my cardio in increments, essentially. Like, being that I'm all in with the wrestling, I'm not training to wrestle 8-minute matches. I'm not training to run 10 miles in however many minutes. But what I want to do is to be able to wrestle intensely for 6 minutes at a time, maybe intensely for 3 minutes at a time. So I structure my things down into do a lot of circuits. So one thing I like is I'll get 4 exercises. I'll do 3 rounds, 30 seconds each, and my break is just the 10 seconds in between. And that adds up to 6 minutes of work. And so then I'm like, okay, I'm feeling that like match feel. You know, another good way is maybe you do some cardio rather than putting your hands over your head and dealing with that initial like tiredness. Get in your stance, motion, stance. Be comfortable with recovering in good position. Because we're all gonna have, no matter what good of shape you're in, you're gonna have those times when you're tired. But you've got to be able to maintain position and maintain like mental acuity. So focus in those times of recovery, you know. But try to structure everything wrestling based. That's the way I do my cardio.
Cool. So anybody else got any questions? We're kind of getting low on time here, so I don't want to keep us too long. Anybody got anything?
I got one more.
Yeah.
So you talked about your coach, was it Sergey earlier?
Yeah.
Is that Sergey like from he coaches at Cliff Keen?
No, different Sergey. They know each other from
Russia
and whatnot, but different Sergey. Everybody in Russia is named Sergey, bro. I know like 4 Sergeys now, but yeah, different guy. But yeah, that guy, Beloglasov, great dude, and I think that actually speaks to what I was talking about. Those guys from Michigan, Micic, the Amin brothers, Abinator. I got a chance to train with them in Belarus for training camp, and so many people were like, "Oh, why are you going to wrestle for this little ass country that's never had wrestling before?" But look at him now. Micic is an Olympian. Amin's going to be an Olympian, and they didn't follow the standard. Oh, you go to a tier 1 college, you win national titles, then you go to an RTC and blah 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 and do this. They made the way that they thought was best for them and their immediate success. You know, it doesn't always have a blueprint, you know, but you put in the work like those guys did, and before you know it, dude went from wrestling guys in Michigan to, you know, being a European Games medalist, and now like he's going to be an Olympian in 2021. So yeah.
Cool. So I think we got about like 3 minutes left here. So last question for Coach Lacey. You know, we've kind of touched on some good wrestling stuff. So you've been to several countries, right? Belarus, Russia, Costa Rica, obviously, you know, Argentina, things like that. What's the coolest place you've been, coolest experience you've had that's kind of been because of wrestling, but not wrestling? You know what I'm saying?
So when I was in Russia, there was this, we went to this town called Smolensk. They had like a festival. It was outside. That's where we wrestled. But then after that, a friend of Sergey's and a friend of a friend took, he was like, "Oh, come to my house. You know, we're going to have a feast, you know, to celebrate all of this." And so we go and we drive, and I think it's going to be like around the corner. No, we drove like 45 minutes into the straight up like Russian woods. Like, we're talking mosquitoes, the worst mosquitoes I've ever had. Like, I'm sure some of you live in like country areas. Imagine your mosquitoes, but imagine them just like in like masses. It's brutal. But he had this homemade sauna, and in Russia, saunas are huge. So we get there, he takes us into like this massive sauna, hot as hell. We sauna, then he's like, "Oh, I have some wild moose meat." He serves us like some food and then slices some like raw moose for us, which is like some delicacy. We have some of his homemade whiskey, and then he starts to give us this speech, and he's like, it was in Russian, so it was like, buddy was translating, and he pretty much broke it down. And he's like, there's a lot of like dispute between our countries, the USA and Russia. And a lot of people say that we are bad or you're bad or what your countries do, but this is all politics because love and things that people have in common bring people together. Like, we're happy that you're here. We're happy to have you here. And despite what the media may say, we want you to come back, and this was a great experience. And it was really humbling because it pretty much was like everyone in the world everyone who wrestles speaks wrestling. I don't speak Russian by any means, but like this guy who I just wrestled 6 hard minutes with is now sitting across the table from me. We're sharing moose and whatnot, and it was just it really like changed my worldview, kind of, because this was back during the time when Trump was having some like Russia issues, and I was like, wow, really, no one gave me any like shit when I was in Russia. No one gave me a hard time. It was all love.
Awesome. That's good stuff. So I think we're about to get cut off by Zoom here. I should have a ticker popping up with like a countdown. Anything else for Coach Lacey before we sign off here?
Hey, Coach, I just want to tell you, thank you for doing this. This something
pleasure, man.
Yeah, we've been talking about doing for a while, and Coach Mucha just took the lead and made it happen. Thanks to you. So thank you. And then also know you got a whole bunch of guys rooting for you back in Indiana now. So
I appreciate it.
Your part, for sure.
Thank you, and you guys keep doing your thing. Stay after it during this quarantine, and before you know, I think we're going to be out there seeing you guys at a tournament. So I'll see you here in a few months and see how everybody's doing. Wish the best to everyone. Coach Mucha, good to see you. Coach Lake, always a pleasure, and wish you the best of luck, guys.
Thank you. So this will be recorded. I'll try and post this in our group, and I'll send this to you, Max. Thanks again. It was awesome. I hope the guys got something out of it.
No problem, man. Take it easy, gentlemen. All right, we'll see you soon.
See you guys.
All right. See ya.
Peace.